Hello everybody, welcome back to UXCELLENCE, UXCELLENCE.org. My name is Carlos Ribedo Ortiz. Welcome to the class number 3, which one is titled Grids, Frameworks and Developers. The most important thing that we're going to talk today is why you have to use grids. And that comes down to the relationship that you will have eternally with the developers. Understand how they materialize your designs from the front-end perspective. You have to acknowledge some technical understanding about how they do their work. And obviously there's some questions that have to be asked in the early beginning in order to avoid problems and go back and review and redo a lot of the designs. Okay, this is not exactly about how to create a grid. Nevertheless, we are going to go to Figma and I'm going to show you how to create a grid, but this is most related to why you have to do it. And this is something that we're going to talk a lot, that is the communication and the relationship between different departments. I wanted to remind you that you can go to UXCELLENCE.org, you can schedule a meeting with me, review all the information, what is actually this project about. And the most important thing is that to understand that this is not a course with 20 or 30 persons. This is just one-on-one. That means that we are going to create a student program just for you. Let's go to Figma and review the agenda first. So presentation, UXCELLENCE.org, the title is Grid, Frameworks and Developers. Okay, first point, design thinking on the final result. What does it mean? That doesn't mean that if you want that specific person, the front-end developer, move your designs into the UI, into the front-end, in the way that you actually create them and you envision them, you have to understand what is happening in that specific transition between Figma and the actual script, right? So it's not about just create the most beautiful and appealing design. No, it's that what you create design-wise, even from the UX or UI, it have to end up being exactly the same what actually you created on the Figma. And the first reason is that you are going to show something to the client or the stakeholders along all the process. And if actually that ended up being way too different, so it's going to be a problem for you. You are going to save a lot of problems if you have a constant communication with the developers. That means that the right question have to be asked in the right moment, okay? Design thinking on the final result. That means communicate all the time with the developers. I cannot stress enough that specific action. Constant communication with the developers. And that leads us to the second point, that is UX, UI, and developer relationship. That actually is pretty much close to that, but not exactly the same. So the first question that you have to ask to the team development is, are we going to use a framework? Yes. Which one is it? There's any library specifically that we want to use from that specific framework? Yes, not? Okay, once you know that, that's when you can start moving from wireframes to high fidelity mockups. Because if you don't ask those questions, that means that at some point you are creating something that later on the developers are going to say, no, but this looks, no, we are not using that library. And maybe like some situation that often happen is that we cannot tune this library in the way that you created your design, because it's too much effort. That's why we are using a library, but you didn't say or you didn't ask. So that's kind of the problem. So are we going to use a library? Yes. Are we going to use a framework? Yes. Which one is it, that one? Okay, and from that point you can start working on the UI perspective. What we are going to review right now are the grids. Okay, I have this Figma file and I found it on the Figma community. What we are going to talk are a couple of key things. One is how many columns you have to use depending of the resolution, breaking points, responsiveness, what type of platform are you creating. For example, is mobile first, is app native, is desktop first, is something just for tablet, for example. So we're going to review that here on Figma. Okay, first I'm going to show you how looks the 12 columns. We are in this particular example, we are going to use Bootstrap. Okay, Bootstrap is a framework based on CSS, and most of the frameworks, they use 12 columns as a standard behavior, regardless, any type of if actually it's Angular, Material, Bootstrap, or many other ones, they tend to use 12 columns on the desktop breaking point. Okay, as you can see here, this is a standard resolution full HD. As a basic components, we have the columns, 12 columns, and we have the margins, and we have some space between them that is called gutter, and then we have the maximum content width, and then we have the maximum container width. There is one slightly different, but the thing is that on these 12 columns, we are going to put all the structure of our designs. Every single model and the design that we put on it, they are going to be structured in these 12 columns. I'm going to show you here on Figma. This is how you do the grid. It's really simple. I'm going to delete all what I have here. This is a desktop resolution. As you can see here, it's 1920 by 1080 full HD. The only thing that you have to do is click on the canvas, you click on this plus icon, and it will show up this. You change this drop down to columns and you put 12. I would say that it's mandatory to use 12 columns on the desktop resolution. Then you put the margins here. The margins, it will depend of what type of design do you want to do, right? I tend to do something like 1200 because I don't like that much to have the content close to the borders, but that's up to the design and the pro designer. That's fine. Let's put 220, and here you change the gutter if you want. I think that by default is 20. That's fine. Another thing that you can do, this is more for the sake of organization for the designers. You can put the rows just for internal organization. And if you want to work on pixel perfect, you can add the grid that is on 5, 10 pixels, whatever. So if you want to create the structure of design, we're going to do it really quickly. Let's suppose that this is a hero image, and below we have this type of card, and we are going to use 4 columns. That means that we have the space to put 3 cards, and each one of them are going to use 3 columns, and below are going to use this type of component for whatever reason. That's going to use 4, 7, and then another 5 for the other card here. So when the developer sees this, he will understand unmistakably that this is on grid, and you will see this exactly the same in the way that you designed it. That's why we have to use grids, okay? Regardless what design you put on every single model, the most important thing is that you are creating your designs in a structure that is based on something that is pretty much global. It's a standard behavior. It is a standard behavior. Every single developer, it will understand that this is on 12 columns, and this is 4 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 columns, and this is 12 columns. So that's unmistakable, right? Okay, right now we're going to go through the different breaking points. That means, what is the explanation of breaking points, or the definition of breaking points? That we have different type of resolution, right? We have different type of resolution: desktop, tablet, and mobile. And each one of them, it have a specific amount of dimensions. So every single framework is going to recognize that device depending of those dimensions. And for example, here, Bootstrap, if you go to the Bootstrap documentation, this is Bootstrap, getbootstrap.com, and this is the 5.0, you will see that we have extra large, large, medium, small, and extra small. And the most common one is large, that is for desktop. That means that is 1200 and above that specific number. Medium is for tablet, that is 760 68, and the all what happened between these two. Okay, and then we have a small that is for mobile resolution, 576, and everything happened between these two. Okay, extra small pretty much right now is not on use because most of the mobile devices are really large and big, and then we have extra large and extra large that is more for big screens at 4K on 8K. So there's like I wouldn't say like edge user case, but it's what for the sake of what we're going to review today, pretty much is these three breaking points: the small, the medium, and the large. If we go back to Figma, we can review how many columns we should use for every single type of breaking point. So on desktop, like I said previously, you have to use 12 columns. And one thing that I forget to show you is that here, if I delete all these little boxes and I move this, as you can see, it maintains the grid, okay? It's not fixed. So for desktop we have 12 columns, and you have to use 12 columns, right? And then you have tablet. On tablet, you can keep working on 12 columns, but I would say that you can move to 12 columns because that design that I did was something like this. I think that you can keep it pretty much the same, right? So you have this design, and instead of using 6 and 6 columns, you can use 3 and 3, and then you can use 4 and 2. One important thing is that you will accommodate your designs depending of the breaking point or the resolution, right? It's not going to be the same. It can be the same if you are working at desktop resolution or if you are working in a mobile. So you have to redesign and reaccommodate, the little boxes and all the design. Let's go back here. So for tablet, I think that you can keep working on 12, but you can move to 6 if you want it. Okay, that's more like a recommendation. And the other one is mobile. Okay, the last one is mobile. That means XS or XXX, but a small resolution. So here we have 6, 4, and 2. I would say that you can use 4 if actually you feel like you need that for any type of design reasons. But most of the cases, I think that you can use just 2. Just with 2, you can create like a hero section, another type of card. And for example, if this is an e-commerce, it will be like just one tiny item here. You can put some content. So until this point, I think that that's kind of the basic stuff, and I don't think that you need any more, but that would be my recommendation. Okay. We talk about the breaking point, we talk about the responsiveness, we talk about the amount of columns for each type of resolution. 12 columns mandatorily, I would say, on desktop, 6 on tablet, and 2 or 4 on mobile. The importance why you have to use the grids and the relationship between yourself and the development team and the person that is going to be working on the front end. And last but not least, don't design for yourself, but for the team. What does it mean? It means that you have to keep in mind all the time that even if you are working alone and you don't have like communication with the rest of the team, because maybe you are a freelancer, and someone contact you and I need to do these designs, and I'm going to send it later to the developer or this agency or this software company, development company. You have to ask a few questions. Along the way, that product that you are designing is going to go through many different hands, many different processes, and in that process is when your design, it will start losing fidelity. Okay, so that's one of the major key things to understand, that if you are a pro designer, you are not by yourself. You are working in a collaborative team, and the most important thing is that the communication, it have to be all the time happening, and it have to be really fluent in order to avoid problems, in order to avoid comebacks to the design, redesign the 50% of the thing that you have done. Okay, so that was grids, frameworks, and developers. Okay, there's a lot more to talk about this specific subject, but I will try to divide it in this kind of basic concept, and then the UI high fidelity approach, and what happens when you are using libraries and framework in a real situation. Okay, thank you very much to being here. Subscribe, share, leave a comment, whatever you want, that's fine. If you want to talk about something specifically, if you have any type of project, if you have a band, if you have any type of thing, just leave a comment, and it's really welcome. Okay, thank you very much. Remember, life itself is a user experience, and we are the designers on it. Peace out.